All right. We can bust through.
That's right. Let's just make it happen.
All right. Here we go.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We have a few moving parts this morning, but we're going to get through our agenda quickly so that we can be ready for fiscal. So we call this Committee on Appointments to order. The first item is a resolution confirming Mayor Bliss's appointment of Matthew Daly to the Grand Rapids Historical Commission.
So moved.
Support. Any discussion about this? I could just have to look at you.
That's right. No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It carries. Next is a resolution approving the City Commission's appointment of James Lewis to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support. This is my outreach to James. He was prepped to join the Affordable Housing Fund Board potentially, but then he wanted to stay involved, and this was the area that we found for him, which I think is a good fit.
Yeah, he'll be a great addition to the board.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It carries. And last is a resolution approving the City Commission's appointment of Malika Brown to the Civil Service Board.
So moved.
Support. I know that Commissioner Isasi has been working on this one. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. It carries. And we're going to table, if it's all right with you, I guess, table these two discussion items to the next fiscal committee meeting.
You're welcome to table them. I know this is one that I've been
Right.
advocating for some time, that this Vital Streets Oversight Commission be, the resolution for its formation be amended to reduce the size.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of internal conversations about that, and the recommendation that is before the Appointments Committee comes from city staff based on both my feedback and some of our colleagues. So I'm happy to have it tabled until Commissioner Moody and Commissioner Isasi can be here, but just want to voice my support for making the changes.
Okay. Were you going to give a brief synopsis? And if we have time for that, we might as well just put it out into space. And
yeah, whatever you would prefer. I can kind of give you an update on where the Vital Streets Oversight Commission feedback is, or wait for.
Let's just do that, and then we'll catch up our other colleagues.
Okay. All right. So as you know, the Oversight Commission was established to consist of 25 members, and we have 11 vacancies currently, as is on your list here next. And so we were asked at your May budget workshop by Mayor Bliss as well as Commissioner Isasi to go ahead and take a look at reducing the membership. And so we did take that to the Vital Streets Oversight Commission at their meeting last month for further discussion. Some of their feedback included that they're comfortable with the reduction, but want to make sure we maintain our currently active members. There's uncertainty as to why the vacancies exist currently, but the group would prefer to reach out to the individual organizations that have been identified on the charter to understand their challenges and interests first before we nail it down to a specific number, and that we provide an avenue for feedback and participation for those groups that have been supportive in the past, even if a particular position were to be eliminated. So with that feedback, we kind of have a tentative recommendation on a path forward, and that's what we wanted to come to you today with for some feedback. First of all, that we stagger the 3-year appointments. Right now, they're all set up to end at the same cycle, which would not be ideal to have that complete turnover. Of course, maintain the mayor and commissioner appointments that are identified. But then reach out to all member organizations with a survey for feedback before determining that final approach and reduced number, as I mentioned. Then we'd also propose an advisory role that continues to honor the public voices that have been a part of the process in the past, but does not require a voting member, so more or less a focus group. That group could continue to receive agendas and meeting minutes with, of course, continued open attendance policies, so they're welcome to join. But once we receive the feedback from the reach out, the intentional reach out to all the organizations, we would provide a final recommendation and come back to you to amend our bylaws to be flexible in the addition or removal of particular organizations, but set it at a specific number. So that's kind of where our thoughts were at from a staff and Vital Streets Oversight Commission perspective, but wanted to see if you had any additional thoughts or comments before we proceed in that direction.
Any thoughts, Mayor?
I think it's a good plan, so
Yeah.
I appreciate you going back and talking to them.
Sure. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that I would assume that Commissioner Isasi and Moody would also agree to kind of get that in motion, not wait till our next meeting to do that outreach. So,
Yeah, and so we could continue with that. Then we would go. The next Vital Streets Oversight Commission is in August, so we would take care of the outreach between now and then, and hopefully have some good feedback for the Oversight Commission to discuss and formalize a recommendation to come back to likely Committee of the Whole with.
okay, great. Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thanks.
All right.
And last is a discussion of current board and commission vacancy list, which we'll do when we've got the full team back together. So with that, we'll call this meeting over.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll call fiscal committee to order here at 8:30. Thank you to the mayor for filling in this morning. First item on our agenda is the resolution approving an agreement with Halt Fire Incorporated for the purchase of stock unit 37235, a 100-foot platform for $1,676,698 or similar, stock number 36948 for $1,623,184, or stock unit 36029 for $1,619,418.
So moved.
Support. Mr. Brown, good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Well, we're hedging our bets with those 3 stock units, so I'll give you a brief synopsis. COVID has wreaked havoc on the supply chain and also pricing on our apparatus plan. So we spent several days down in Indianapolis at the Fire Department Instructors Conference meeting with apparatus vendors. We've seen an approximately 20% price increase in fire apparatus in the last 2 years. We came back, plugged in the numbers, and realized our 30-year plan would essentially be insolvent in 7 years. So we originally were going to purchase 3 engines this coming year, and next year purchase this aerial we were looking at. There's a 24 to 36 month lead time on aerials. So we're looking at 5 years before a new aerial would actually roll into our city. That is our current pain point, is our reserve aerial fleet. So by purchasing this stock unit, we could place it at the Kalamazoo Avenue Fire Station in Ward 3, take a 7-year-old unit, slide it into reserve status, and really shore up that weak point. We've also adjusted the plan to purchase less apparatus in the next 5 years. We really want to be conservative and ensure our apparatus fund is able to absorb the future purchases. So I'm certainly open for any questions on this purchase or the apparatus plan in general.
Very good. Colleagues, questions? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Sir. Item 2 is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Grand Rapids Youth Commonwealth in the amount of $84,000.
So moved.
Support. D.C. Reifenberg, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you. City of Grand Rapids has financially assisted the Boys and Girls Club of Grand Rapids Youth Commonwealth effort to promote the character and general welfare of youth throughout the establishment of recreational centers and kindred projects in fulfilling the purpose of preventing delinquency. The police department remains supportive of the Boys and Girls Club because of its activities have been proven to lessen the burden of the city in combating juvenile crime. We support the extension of the contract for 1 additional year in the amount of $84,000. There's an appropriation for the amount in the general operating fund. The attached resolution authorizes the service agreement between the Grand Rapids Boys and Girls Club, Youth Commonwealth, and the City of Grand Rapids for the amount of $84,000.
Very good. Questions?
No questions. Just a comment. Thank you, DC. I know we've all supported Boys and Girls Club for years and have spent time there, and I just really appreciate the partnership with the police department and all the work that you do to support their support of kids in our community.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
All right. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with the Children's Assessment Center doing business as the Children's Advocacy Center of Kent County in the amount of $60,000.
So moved.
Support.
It's me again.
Yes,
This is a continuation again of our partnership with the Children's Advocacy Center. We have 3 detectives assigned to the center. And again, longstanding partnership between the center and the Family Services Unit at the Grand Rapids Police Department Detective Unit. It'll provide ongoing expert multidisciplinary investigative and complaints regarding sexual abuse of children. Attached resolution authorizes a new contract between the city and the Children's Assessment Center for fiscal year 2023. There's appropriation in the amount of $60,000 in the general operating budget for this year.
Very good. Questions?
Great. No?
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, DC.
Item 4, resolution authorizing entering into a professional services agreement with TechLogix Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $28,750.
So moved.
Support. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning. On July 26, I will be presenting my review and recommendations for changes to police policies, procedures, training staff, deployment, and a roadmap for implementation of the same. One key reform will be revisions to the Grand Rapids Police Department's policies for our officers to follow requiring de-escalation. To accelerate implementation of this policy change, the Police Department requests authorization to enter into this professional service agreement with TAClogics Inc. for 3 Train the Trainer sessions over a 2-day period. The training will be provided by 2 national expert instructors who have decades of experience navigating law and policy, community interests, operational challenges, and transformational change. Familiar with these 2 instructors, they actually guided the Los Angeles Police Department through and out of their federally mandated consent decree. The persons trained through the engagement will then in turn train the balance of the department personnel to these policy changes and improvements. Contract amount of $28,750 includes the instruction, training materials, travel expenses, and preparatory meetings. The agreement will be funded through the police department's fiscal year 2023 budget. The training will accelerate the progress of change and will be in addition to the $150,000 allocated for community-informed training in the OPA budget.
Very good. Questions?
Thanks, Chief. No questions?
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 5, resolution authorizing Grand Rapids Police Department recruit class to attend Grand Valley State University Police Academy for a total cost of $92,200.
So moved.
Support?
There you go. Grand Rapids Police Department recommends approval of the attached resolution authorizing payment to Grand Valley State University's Police Academy for the tuition and expenses related to the certification of 10 new recruits that are ready to begin the process. The process of hiring non-certified employees will broaden and increase the candidate pool of individuals that have a drive to serve the public. The recruit class of 2205 consists of 9 individuals who will begin in August 25th, 2022 and graduate on December 9th, 2022. Complete cost of the training and certification for the recruit class is funded through fiscal year 2023 Police General Fund at a cost of $82,980. This includes tuition, student fees, and uniform expenses. It's the goal of GRPD to send a 10th candidate through the academy during the summer session. It'd be May to August of 2023. The cost of the final candidate would be $9,220, bringing the total to $92,220. The department is continuing to work to further broaden its options for recruiting and training talent, including exploring several options with the Grand Rapids Community College.
Very good. Questions?
Yeah, just one question, Deputy Chief. So for the recruits that graduate in December of 2022, then if they are hired full-time, can you remind us timeline before they would be fully trained? Is it an additional 6 months after that or
Yes.
9? Okay.
Yep, they go through an 8-week in-house after they get back, and then they go through the FTO process, which is another 17 weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. So potentially, they would be fully trained by spring of next year.
Yep.
Okay.
In this class that we've selected, 4 of them are previous interns, so we've got quite a bit of knowledge of them because we've already had them at the department for 4 years. One's an African-American female, 3 are white females, and there are 5 white males, 1 being Bosnian that speaks several languages.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. And then the individual that would go through next summer?
Has not been selected yet.
Oh, they haven't been selected. Okay.
Yep.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 6, thank you, DC. Item 6, resolution approving the execution of a services agreement for waste management, maintenance, and placemaking with My Dat Services doing business as block by block in an amount not to exceed $65,000 on behalf of the Uptown Business Improvement District.
Good morning. My name is
hang on,
Vera.
So moved.
Support.
Oh,
All right.
sorry.
I think you're good. Welcome.
My name is Vera. I'm with the Economic Development Department. So Uptown Bid would like to renew their contract with My Dat Services, DVA block by block, for placemaking and trash maintenance services in their 4 districts. This will be a 1-year renewal, and it would be for maximum of $65,000.
Very good.
Yeah.
Questions?
Great. No, it's a great service.
Absolutely.
Makes a difference.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing a 1-year extension of a professional services agreement between Archive Social Incorporated and the City of Grand Rapids for a total not to exceed $11,988.
So moved.
Support. Mr. Green, good morning, sir.
Good morning. This will allow us to meet all of our compliance requirements in terms of records retention. This is a service that we use that captures all of our social media posts and the comments that are posted as well. So this does it automatically and just accomplishes something I don't know that we would ever be able to do without significant staffing increases.
Very good. Questions? All right, those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, series ordinance for water supply system improvements, junior lien revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $32 million.
All right, so moved.
Support?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Back in February, we brought you a 45-day notice for water supply system revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $60 million. Today, we're asking for authorization to issue $32 million. Bids and estimates came back quite a bit higher, especially on the Lake Michigan Filtration Plant residuals handling improvement project, so we've decided to delay that at this time. These bonds will not be general obligations of the city. They will be issued through the Michigan Finance Authority. We anticipate to issue 2 series, both 20-year bonds at an interest rate of 1.875 and potential principal forgiveness of almost $12 million, but that actual amount will be decided once we know exactly how much we've borrowed.
Very good. Questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. So the work that we're holding off at the Lake Michigan Filtration Plant, so that, is that, will that have any impact on services? Or
Mr. Jeremiah's walking up here.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Wayne, I remember reading this, but remind me what we're putting off and the impact that has on the department.
Yeah, so in our previous comprehensive master plan, we had a project for residuals improvements projects out there, which is essentially lighten, I guess, the load of the residual sludge that comes from the treatment process out to the lagoons. The estimate in our previous CMP was about $20 million. As we started to see the supply chain issues impact some of our other capital projects, we were starting to see 30 to 40% increases on some of our other pump station work. We went back to the design engineers and contractors. They looked at it. They said plan on closer to $30 million for this project, so essentially a 50% increase. At that point, we decided to back off. We can hold off on this for some time. At this point, we are going to reapply for DWRF funding for this in a future year to see if there will be additional benefits at that time. But right now, it just does not make financial sense. It does not impact water treatment capacity, quality issues, or anything like that.
All right, that was my primary question. All right, thank you.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, ordinance amending section 4.1 of ordinance 2019-56, new classification surplus assets coordinator.
All right, so moved.
Support. Good morning.
Good morning. Excuse me. The job description for the surplus asset coordinator position was created by Seagull Waters Consulting Group during the citywide classification and compensation study of 2017. When the buyer position became vacant, the surplus asset coordinator job was revisited and updated, and the updated job description better aligns with the duties assigned with that position. The classification and salary range were approved by the Civil Service Board on June 1st of 2022.
Very good. Questions?
No.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 10 is a salary ordinance for employees represented by the Grand Rapids Police Officers Association, Crime Scene Tech, Latent Print Examiner, Police Intern Unit.
So moved.
Support.
Great, thank you so much. This is just a follow-up item to the labor contract for the crime scene technicians that was approved by the City Commission on June 21st of this year. This is just to put the wages in place for that. So a 4% increase effective July 1st, 2022, 3% increase for July 1st of 2023, and a 2% increase effective July 1st of 2024, as well as raising the maximum pay for police interns from $13.10 per hour to a maximum of $17 per hour.
Very good. Questions?
Nope.
All right. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Item 11, resolution approving a contract for performance evaluation consultation services for a cost of $24,920 with JER HR Group.
So moved.
Support. Welcome.
Good morning. So this will allow us to best utilize or perform evaluation tool we just purchased last year for performance evaluations. It allows us to revamp and tie in our performance evaluation to our strategic plan and, more importantly, our values, which helps us build our culture around our values and our plan.
Very
So
good.
it was consultation services, focus groups, and helping us align what we're actually measuring people on annually.
Excellent.
Okay.
Questions?
I do have one question. So does that mean our current evaluation process will be changed? Is that the anticipation, like the form, the questions?
Correct.
All of that will
Correct. So
be
the
hopefully
process will-
improved?
Yeah, so it'd be greatly improved, to be automated, streamlined, allow for more coaching conversations throughout the year, and we'll pilot it with 3 groups, APA, GREIU, and non-rep first before we move out to the broader organization.
Great. Good. Long overdue.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Item 12, resolution accepting a grant in the amount of $1.78 million from the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, and authorizing execution of agreements for implementation of the FY23 compliance plan as required by the MIDC Act.
So moved.
Support, Ms. Bahatch.
Good morning. So we're bringing this to you as we do on an annual basis. The Michigan Indigent Defense Commission has standards that have been put in place over a variety, several years, where they actually have adopted them and enacted them. And we are at the point where we are completely separate from the judiciary in terms of the administration of indigent defense. That's housed in community development, and we have a staff person, as you may remember, over in the 61st District Court, Ms. Jessica Van Sokema, who's doing a wonderful job in helping make sure that we are in compliance. We turn in a cost analysis and a compliance plan annually that has to be approved. Our plan was just approved at their meeting in June. This allows us, our grant is actually the amount of our budget, which is $1.9 million. Sorry, our grant is $1.9 million. They take out then our local required match, which is $178,000. And then we don't really know the exact amount that we're going to be obtaining until we close out from the previous year. So that will end in September 30th. And then our new grant would take place on October 1st. So this just allows us to start moving forward because we issue expressions of interest for attorneys. We're responsible for making sure that we secure the counsel for appointment to indigent defendants.
Very good. Questions? All right, hearing none. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 13, resolution accepting a $14,250 grant and executing an agreement with the Heart of West Michigan United Way for the Grow 1000 Youth Employment Program.
So moved.
Support. Ms. Harris, good morning.
Good morning. This resolution to accept a grant from the Heart of West Michigan United Way by way of Bank of America. This grant will support the Legacy Grow 1000 program, a 6-week summer youth employment program for Grand Rapids youth ages 15 to 24. Youth work a total of 120 hours to gain meaningful and valuable work experience. This is Bank of America's first year supporting this program.
Very good. Questions?
Shannon, can you remind us how many young people we have in the program right now? I know I've seen several of them here at City Hall, but I'm curious what the numbers are to date.
Yeah, to date we have about almost 200 young people.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks for your work.
This summer.
Okay, thanks for your work on this.
Very good. All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 15 is our bid list resolution for July 12th, 2022.
One more. Did you miss the Weggy
Oh,
Foundation?
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It's similar to
All right. Item 14, resolution accepting a $10,000 grant award and executing an agreement with the Weggy Foundation for the Grow 1000 Youth Employment Program.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. This grant will support the Legacy Grow 1000 program. Again, it's a 6-week summer youth employment program for Grand Rapids youth. The Weggy Foundation continues to support this program that helps build a young person's social capital and agency.
All right, questions?
No.
All right, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 15 is our bid list resolution for July 12th, 2022. Mayor, I need a motion.
Oh, so moved.
Support. Any questions about any of the items on the bid list? We don't require you to read the bid list anymore unless there's questions.
I have no questions.
All right. Seeing none, those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 16, warrant report, 6/8/2022 to 6/28/2022, and travel and funds report, May 2022. Mr. Comptroller.
Hey, good morning, Mayor, Commissioner. So this morning for the warrant report, for the period of time referenced, the city released cash payments totaling approximately $29.6 million during that period. That includes approximately $4.7 million for our employee payroll expense and just over $1 million for income tax warrants. In terms of quantity, that equaled 3,998 income tax refunds being issued and 1,824 accounts payable checks being issued. And the tables on the following pages contain the detail of all those payments that exceed the amount of $20,000. Also here we have our monthly travel report, which provides an overview of travel spend by each city department for the May fiscal year-to-date period, so 11 out of 12 months of the fiscal year. And those figures show that in total the city has spent 46% of its overall budget, or about just a little over $1 million of $2.2 million. And then lastly, we have our monthly funds report. So while the warrant report provides interested readers with kind of line item detail of individual city expenditures, the monthly fund report we use to source commentary from a variety of city staff that helps provide more of a high-level explanation of some of the both economic and operational drivers that contribute to city expenses and revenues in each of these funds. And happy to take any questions. That concludes the reports I have this morning.
Very good. Questions for the Comptroller?
No
All right. Hearing none, that report is received and filed. Thank you, sir. And our last item on the agenda this morning is the Treasurer's report for the period June 4, 2022 through June 28, 2022. Mr. Treasurer.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioner. With our report today, I just want to highlight one significant item really right off the bat is if we look at the second page where we look at our portfolio, we're at $565 million, and we are now earning 1.72% on our portfolio. We hit our low point about 3 or 4 reports ago where we were down to 1.28%. So this 44 basis point increase in our portfolio roughly equates to, if we used $500 million, that's $2.2 million more in interest earnings now coming in each year for the city. So as we see inflation hit our economy, as we see the Fed continue to raise rates, we're able to go out and purchase investments at higher interest rates. So we're going to see that continue to grow. And what we're doing is we're targeting investments that are in the 4 to 9 year maturity range right now. So by doing that, that's going to help us bridge any gap where we have a future recession. And right now, with the way the economy is faced and where the Fed is positioned, they're planning to raise rates again another 75 basis points. It is starting to come into the conversation that maybe they go 100 basis points, but that's just kind of a low probability. They're about 10%, 7 to 10% in that ballpark. So really we're paying very close attention where we are for the economy. We think that this is something that the Fed's going to continue to raise rates, and they're going to raise it quickly. But on the opposite side, now, think of it this way: how are you going to land the plane? Once we turn that corner, that's going to be the challenge that we have both locally, on the state level, and on the federal level. Is going to be what is going to happen. All of these changes are based on supply side. Until the supply side gets fixed, we're not going to see an end to this. That's the big challenge, is the supply side. The demand's there. We have the demand, right? We're trying to do projects like for the water filtration plant that we're putting off because the costs aren't correct. So that's the challenge we have right now, is finding the folks that can do the work. We're finding the supplies that we can get in because everybody's got plenty of dollars to go buy them. Now it's at the 20, 30, 40% increased rate. And so we still have to wait for those things to normalize. So once the supply side actually catches up, we should see some softening in the Fed's position and potentially lowering of interest rates. But there's a lot of fixes that still have to take place. But from our position, we're positioning the city portfolio in the best possible way to cover us over a longer period of time. So that way we hopefully are going to continue to have interest earnings that will outlast any type of market correction or market situation where interest rates are going to either drop quickly or have some other type of disruption.
Very good. Questions for the Treasurer? All right, hearing none, that report is received and filed. And with that, we'll conclude the fiscal committee meeting here at 8:55. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
morning. Good morning. Let's go ahead and get the meeting started. I want to call to order the Community Development Committee meeting for the 12th of July. The first item on the agenda is a resolution approving a fireworks discharge permit for JDL FX in connection with the Upheaval Music Festival at Lookout Park, which is 30 Coldbrook Street Northeast on Friday, July 15, 2022.
So moved. Support?
Good morning, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, Upheaval, it's pretty small display for Breaking Benjamin, so shouldn't be any issues.
Okay, very good. That's my neck of the woods.
That's right.
Yeah. You all good? Any questions? Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item, a resolution approving a fireworks discharge permit for Event 1 FX LLC for an indoor special effects at the Van Andel Arena in connection with the All Elite Wrestling Tour 2022 event on August 5, 2022.
So moved.
Support?
Okay, this is a new kind of WWE group.
Yeah, I'm in it, so I'm familiar with it. That's good. You can go ahead, though. Go ahead.
Well, the only reason I say that is because it's the typical, when they submit their pyro, they send me a big pack of what they think they might possibly maybe do. So on the day of the show, they generally figure out what they're going to do, and I've been hearing that there's a possibility of them having an electric car they want to drive in, which, you know, that'll be special considerations.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that.
Okay, that's good. All right. Any questions?
No.
Very good. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next item is a resolution scheduling consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 32 of the City of Grand Rapids Code of Ordinances, Title II, Utilities and Services, entitled City Stormwater Drainage System for July 26, 2022.
So moved.
Support, Mr. Hurt.
Good morning, Commissioner. We have a presentation for you to talk about some amendments to the stormwater ordinance, and we have here today Carrie Vet and Mike Grenier from the Environmental Services Department to go through that presentation.
So we have what they call a municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4 permit at the city, and one of the questions I get when I tell people what we have to do to keep that permit is, why do we have that permit? And the answer is easy. If we want to discharge to waters of the state, the river, tributaries, wetlands, we have to have this permit. So unless we want to just plug the system and make everybody's lives easier but flood the city, we've got to continue having this permit. So it was applied for in April of 2015. And like every good process, we've had some back and forth and back and forth. Finally, last year we were given, probably end of 2020, we were given the nod that we're getting very close. We're getting very close. And so we started preparing. One of the big things is we're going to have an industrial stormwater program, and I will explain all of this in more detail, but we did add new staff for that last quarter of 2021. So we've been preparing. We are good to go for that program, and we've been making adjustments to kind of account for the new workload that we're going to have on top of all the other requirements that are both internal, other departments, and external to developers and industrial facilities. So the biggest last thing is getting the ordinance changes in place. Eagle accepted our proposed revisions to our ordinance, and then this is the first step. In 2 weeks, we're going to ask for actually the vote on it. This is just the first reading, so to speak. So here are the big changes. Change in the rainfall distribution. We went from using something from 1971 data to 2014 data, which seems old now, but we turned in our application in 2015. So that was, and it's still the most current official national. We have done additional studies locally to see how things are affected. This ended up being, when we looked at all the range and we had our local study done, we looked to see where this fell. This was about middle of the road for extreme climate change or older data or different models. When we looked at what it would cost people, it's about 20% more for stormwater. So this is where we thought was acceptable, and it's actually still a minimum one for what Eagle wants. We know we still have work to do if we really want to prepare for climate change, but we, especially given the 7-year gap, we don't want to make any bigger steps for developers. The other big change is they're required to infiltrate the 2-year 24-hour storm, which is a little over a 2.5-inch storm. That has its own issues that come up with that, and we're going to discuss that more in a minute too. Finally, maintenance agreements are required so that when people put in their systems, they are required to tell us every 2 years that they are maintaining it. We're going to have to inspect about 10% of those properties ourselves. But when we put things in, unless we see a problem, we don't have any way to go back and find out if these systems are still working. So if they were to open up holes bigger to outflow more water, we wouldn't know unless it actually caused an issue. So this gives us a little more to make sure everything's done as it was permitted. And all of these apply to city projects too, both development properties, like if ESD were supposed to do something, and right-of-way properties. And right-of-way is a new thing for us. Luckily, though, we've been able to do vital streets, and we've been pretty much following this as it goes. On the industrial side, we will get to that in a few more. So because of the infiltration requirement, the state gave us 2 options: mitigation, which means a developer can go off-site and do their own mitigation within rules, or payment in lieu, which is paying us for properties that we've done above and beyond. Mary Waters Park is probably our biggest example of what we've done that wasn't required. But then we were approached by American Rivers about 5 years ago to say, hey, have you thought about a credit trading program? And this has only been done before in places that actually have a stormwater utility that can provide more incentives. But they checked out the feasibility, we've checked out the interest, and it looks like a great way to have private companies do that off-site mitigation. They're going to get better prices because they have less red tape to go through. They're not working. A lot of times our projects are in the right-of-way, which is not as cost-effective. They can do bigger projects at a better cost. So through this private trading system, we should be able to get the more green infrastructure installed and lower prices, and best we can to help developers with these new requirements. Industrial program. So this is based on industrial programs that already have permits with the state. This is more of an inspection. We won't be requiring more. We're just going to be checking to make sure they are doing as they should be. If they don't already have an industrial permit, we're basically just going to want to know where they're storing hazardous materials and what they're doing to keep it out of our storm system. They're going to have a ranking for how often they're permitted, how often they're inspected based on the probability that they could release to our system. For example, if somebody has materials that are all structural controls so they won't get to our system, we would inspect them less frequently, maybe up to once every 5 years. If they have something that requires them to sweep every day, that's going to be one that's closer to a high priority. That's going to be maybe every year we're inspecting them. Fees are going to range from $1,200 to $1,800 a site, depending on their risk level. And again, that'll be adjusted. We're estimating everything based on what we have now and the facilities we've looked at so far. But with the omnibus, every year that'll adjust to make sure we're only getting the real cost of the program back. Internally, as I said, right-of-way sites are going to need more. On the bright side, the state has let us bank our projects that were above and beyond requirements since 2015. So we have a sizable bank from Vital Streets and other projects we've done. Mary Waters was one of those. So we're working with departments to figure out if they want to put some in the credit trading program, if they want to bank some, just continue that bank for their own programs when they can't do green infrastructure in a cost-effective manner or due to site constraints. Other thing is doing site inspections for our sites like 201 Market, where we store the most of our materials, and that we've been doing to some extent, but it's a more formalized program. We're also doing sampling of outfalls that are, this one's fun. Within the first 30 to 60 minutes of a quarter-inch rain, we are sampling, and I think we've got about 6 or 8 in the city, 50 that are region-wide for the Lower Grand. So that's been, luckily we've got a consultant to do that, because trying to get more than 1 or 2 at a time during that 30-minute window we're giving is difficult. But so those are most of the extra requirements that we have internally, and we've been working with departments. We're working on getting more as things are coming nearer. Backtracking, we've been educating developers for probably 3 to 5 years. We're very close to what everyone else in the Lower Grand is doing, so this is not a surprise to anybody. And we're actually, because our system's more complicated, of course, we're actually one of the last to implement these changes. So again, it should not be a big surprise. And we've actually trained about 75% of our industrial users that will be getting a survey to see how they fit in the program. ELGRO, Lower Grand River Organization of Watershed, has also been training. American Rivers has done a lot of training, especially on the credit trading program. We've reached out to pretty much all of the stakeholders we can. And again, we're pretty much internally, we still got some training to do. This aligns with all our city goals. It's all required by the state, but it aligns with our city plan, a strategic plan, green infrastructure portfolio standards, vital streets. It all goes with what we want to do, climate resiliency. It will lead to improved water quality, reduced flooding and erosion, and also with the addition of green, you get your urban heat island effects reduced and your other air quality benefits. So this is our first reading. We intend to come back in 2 weeks for the vote. Implementation would then be August 25th, which would just barely meet our September 1 deadline for getting it to the state. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thanks so much for that. Any questions, colleagues, comments? No? Very thorough. Thanks so much for the presentation. I'll go ahead and call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. Very good. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item number 4 is awarding a contract with Allied Mechanical Services, Inc. for improvements to the final effluent water line at the Water Resource Recovery Facility in the amount of $1,303,000 with total amount not to exceed $1,718,445.
So moved.
All right, good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So the FEW line, or final effluent water line, takes a portion of the plant's final effluent water before it's discharged to the river and instead diverts it elsewhere within the plant for use in the treatment process. So the FEW is used for both operational and maintenance purposes. It's utilized in process as well as cleaning tanks. Currently, there's not enough volume with the system that's in place. And so this project seeks to upsize the existing lines and provide for additional capacity to be used in these process and maintenance operations. The project will also include additional yard hydrants out there at the plant. We did receive one bid for the work on June 21st, and Allied Mechanical provided that in that amount of $1,303,000. That was quite a bit over the engineer's estimate, which had been set at $950,000. We dug into that, met with the contractor to review it as a project team. Really felt the overall bid price was higher than anticipated, in part due to the current labor market, but also there were some allowances for the underground work associated with the required earthwork, with having to do with contaminated soils and needing to get beneath other utilities on site. So the project team is recommending that we move ahead with the award of the project to Allied with the total not to exceed amount of $1,718,445, with that amount coming from the sewer system fund.
Very good. Questions, colleagues? No. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, very good. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is a resolution awarding contracts with Brick Plumbing, LLC, and
McDonald Plumbing, Inc. for private water service installation and well abandonment in the Berger Goodwood neighborhood in Cascade Charter Township with total expenditures not to exceed $3,086,000.
So moved.
So this work is being done under the Consolidation and Contamination Risk Reduction Grant, C2R2, through EAGLE. It's intended to address PFAS contamination that's been detected in residential wells out there by the airport, allowing properties to connect to now the city's domestic water main. A separate project was awarded in April to install the public water main serving phase 1 of this neighborhood, and now this project will then connect the 255 homes into that water main and abandon their existing wells. We received bids on June 16th, and those were evaluated based on unit prices submitted. We're recommending that contracts be awarded to both Brick Plumbing and McDonald Plumbing. Having the two contractors on board allows property owners to have their choice in contractor and also provides more capacity to get the work done in a timely manner. So asking for your approval of this resolution, which will award to both of those contractors and authorize expenditures in the amount not to exceed $3,086,000. And that funding is coming, again, from that C2R2 grant, as well as the grant sharing agreement with the Gerald R. Ford Airport Authority and the Water System Fund.
Very good. Colleagues? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is a resolution awarding a contract with Dykem Excavators, Inc. for the reconstruction of Plainfield Avenue from Marywood Drive to Ellesmere Street in the amount of $3,858,061.60, with a total project cost not to exceed $5,101,500.
Support.
So this project will reconstruct just over a half mile of Plainfield Avenue. Also includes replacing the water main and water services, 47 of which are lead service lines, storm sewer upgrades, ADA ramps, and some sidewalk replacement. Due to lead times on the water main material, the work is actually scheduled to occur in 2023. But we did receive bids on June 23rd. 5 came in, and Dykema provided that low bid of just over $3.86 million, which was under our engineer's estimate of $4.1 million. With the state's drinking water revolving fund requirement, we cannot utilize the city's bid discount program, but thought it was worth noting that Dykema will be utilizing a 4% MLBE participation rate. So asking for your approval of this award to Dykema with that total not to exceed amount of $5,101,500 coming from the DWRF, the Water System Fund, and Vital Streets Fund. Now, this is one of the 14 projects funded under the $22.5 million DWRF loan, and we're anticipating that the water system will receive an estimated $260,325 of reimbursement covering the lead service line replacement portion.
Very good. Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is a resolution awarding a contract with Groundhog Excavating and Landscaping, LLC, for the replacement of lead service lines at various locations. Contract 2022-2 in the amount of $1,961,968 with a total project cost not to exceed $2,673,700.
So moved.
So contract 1 was awarded at your last meeting, and that one covered 337 lead service lines. This one will replace approximately 316 and covers the subsequent trench repair that'll be required at various locations selected from streets that are being resurfaced or reconstructed in connection with the upcoming Vital Streets work. So the work is expected to begin in the spring of 23 and complete in the fall of 23. 6 bids were received on June 21st, and Groundhog submitted the low bid of $1.96 million, which was under our engineer's estimate of $2.49 million. Though the involved funding does not allow for the city's bid discount program to be utilized again in this case, it's worth noting that Groundhog themselves is an MLBE, and one of the contractors they'll be utilizing for the concrete-related work is also an MLBE sub. So asking for your approval of the award to Groundhog with that total amount of $2,673,700 coming from financing with the DWRF, as well as the Water System Fund. And in this case, since it's predominantly lead service lines, we're anticipating reimbursement in the amount of $2,393,600 through the DWRF's Infrastructure Fund Transfer Act.
All right, very good. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item number.
Glad to hear that we have an MLBE for these lead service lines. I think that's huge.
Yes. Yeah, and I did mean to follow up. I know at the last meeting you did ask about MLB engagement, especially with respect to this type of work, given we have so much, and did follow up with the team on that. We've brought it up at Monday Group. Certainly that's been talked about. The Office of Equity Engagement has listed 3 contractors that mention at least some portion of plumbing in the work that they do. So been intentional about letting those folks know. I think what we're seeing though is there is really a saturation in the market right now in this type of work, and so getting folks to bid on this when they're so busy with everything else has been difficult. But it is something that we're keeping an eye on, and happy to report that we do have some engagement on this contract.
Very good. Item number 8 is a resolution awarding a contract with SWT Excavating, Inc. for the replacement of lead service lines at various locations, contract 2022-3, in the amount of $1,623,648.21, with a total project cost not to exceed $2,216,900.
So moved.
So this project consists of replacing approximately 437 lead service lines. In this case, this will all be on the private side of the service lines, so the work can begin a little bit sooner and is not entirely dependent on road construction. So we're anticipating it to start this fall and be completed by fall of '23. Received 3 bids on June 23rd, and SWT provided that low bid amount of $1.6 million under the estimate of $1.9 million. And while there's no MLB involvement in this one, we have been talking to SWT, and one of their subs may end up qualifying and is looking into becoming a registered MLBE. So requesting your approval of this award to SWT with a total expenditure not to exceed $2,216,900. And in this case, we're anticipating reimbursement in the amount of $2,029,600 through the DWRF Infrastructure Fund Transfer Act.
Okay.
Great.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Last item on the agenda is a resolution approving an amendment to City Commission proceeding number 91732 dated May 24, 2022.
So moved.
So on May 24th, Commission approved a resolution that consented to the vacation of the Jefferson Alley, generally between Wealthy Street and Cherry Street. This request was originally brought forth by Trinity Health Michigan in coordination with their other adjacent property owners, which included St. George Orthodox Church and Mary Free Bed Hospital. The legal description that we had included in the resolution did not include a reference to Block 7 or vacated Goodrich Street, nor did it include the square footage covering that area. So this resolution seeks to amend that proceeding, adding the missing information, and we apologize for that error.
It's okay. All right, any questions? No? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of our agenda. This meeting is adjourned. We will be getting back together at 10:15 for our committee of the whole. 10:15. Thank you.
10:15 or 10?
10:15. morning, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for July the 12th, 2022. We are going to, we have a couple of items that we're going to cover, and then we're going to recess at the call of the chair for the briefing. Both the mayor as well as City Manager Washington are currently with the governor who's in town, and so they're there for a presentation. But I'd like to begin with a presentation of the Dr. Schnur Scholarship Award. I think that we have some colleagues here who are going to step up as well.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
So this award is in recognition of our former city physician that we had here, and upon his retirement, he actually created this award, and we have the award recipient here today, Abigail, and her dad, Paul. So if you would present for us the award to her, I think you would receive something
Sure.
to issue to her today. I also have Miss Stewart here, and she is from GRPS, and they're the ones that take in all the applications for the award and pick the recipient, and she's here as well, Miss Stewart.
This is a certificate of achievement recognizing Abigail Hahn of City Middle High School as the recipient of the 2022 Dr. Schnur Scholarship, signed by both Mayor Rosalind Bliss and Superintendent Dr. Leadrian Roby. Congratulations, Abigail.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep. The next item is a resolution approving polling locations and fixing election inspector pay for the August 2nd, 2022 primary election.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. So this is a formality we go through for the commission to set the polling locations. That none of the polling locations have changed from ones that we have used in the past. We had some temporary ones in 2020 due to the pandemic, but we've used some new ones since then, and not recommending any increases in election pay because we increased those in 2020, but we will review those, probably revisit that for the presidential election cycle. So the pay for this for the upcoming elections is $200 for chairperson, $180 for e-poll book inspector, and $165 a day for all other election inspectors.
Very good. Any questions, colleagues? No? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Motion carries. And on that note, again, we'll recess, and we will be back for the presentation of the 2022 National Community Survey results.
Do you have an amount of time for recess?
We don't. It's at the call of the chair. I don't necessarily want to give a time per se. I would think I could say 11 o'clock, but don't hold me to it. How about that?
There are millions.
Yeah, the only other thing is when we come back, there is going to be a closed session, so we'll hold that vote for a closed session when everybody's back as well.
Okay. All right. All right.
We have 4 people.
Oh, we could do that for a. That way it's on the books.
We'll go ahead and in advance make a motion for a closed session to occur later this morning/afternoon. So it'll be I'll go down the line here, Commissioner.
You need a motion first?
A motion,
You need
sorry.
to know, is it for legal opinion?
It is for a legal opinion and pending litigation.
So
Very
moved.
good.
Support?
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
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 And I'll say yes as well. Okay. Thank you very much. Motion carries.
You wouldn't know right away.
And we're back. We're going to go ahead and jump into our briefing now for the key findings for the 2022 National Survey. I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Doug Matthews.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just very briefly, right here at the onset, when we launched on this kind of formal strategic planning process, an important part of strategic planning is being able to measure your results. So in 2019, we entered into a contract with the National Research Center to do a periodic survey to determine not just how we're performing as a city organization, but how is the community performing over a variety of metrics. We chose the National Research Center because they actually do this work across 600 cities around the country. And what that provides us with is a sense not just of how we're performing against ourselves from period to period, but also how are we performing relative to other government organizations. So you'll see NRC has been doing this for more than 20 years. Really, there's two leaders in this space from a municipal standpoint. ETC is the other. And they measure against several community metrics. There's actually 10 in total. And then they have ratings underneath that for particular services and activities that contribute to those facets of what they call livability in a community. In terms of the survey itself, they're randomly selected households. That's important. In order to have statistical validity, you have to have a random sampling. They want to make sure that they're oversampling in areas where they might not have the coverage that they need. And then ultimately, they may need to weight survey data in particular demographics in order to make sure that what we have in the survey is representative or at best representative of the community. Even in those circumstances, it's important to know that you're almost always going to have a margin of error. Unless we have 100% response from every person that lives here, there's going to be something called a margin of error. So this year we had 750 return surveys, which is actually significantly more than we had the first time around. They also sampled more surveys, so we got more, but our response rate did go up from the previous period. We did this in 2019 and presented those results towards the end of that year. That resulted in a plus or minus 4% margin of error. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is in some of our demographic subgroups, because we made a commitment to disaggregate by race and ethnicity wherever we can, as well as gender identity. Those numbers, because we have fewer people that are responding within those subgroups, your margin of error actually does increase. The weighting helps in that respect, but the margin of error can still run up to about plus or minus 12 or 15%. I just say that to keep in mind. I don't say that to say that the results aren't accurate, because if you see from the 2019 survey to the 2022 survey, the numbers are pretty consistent, which gives us even more confidence that the sentiment that we're getting is pretty representative of those populations. So here you see a map. These are all the communities that the Research Center works in. This is where we pull our benchmarks from. You'll see national benchmarks in the report, which you all have received. You'll also see population benchmarks in that report. Those population benchmarks, we've got just under 40 that we're measured against, which gives us a sense for communities of our size, how well are we doing? So to answer that question, how well are we doing? We ranked at or near the 85th percentile, or top 4 amongst communities of our size in these areas. It's worth noting that the first 2 there, opportunities to attend cultural arts and music activities, as well as community support for the arts, we were also in the 85th percentile for all communities regardless of size. So those are particularly notable successes for us. You'll see on here as well infrastructure, water resources, as well as transportation infrastructure were areas of strength relative to our peer communities, as well as public library services and employment opportunities. And you'll notice employment opportunities is just one of the economic factors that we performed particularly well on, which is notable given the circumstances that every community has faced over the last few years. So these are the key focus areas. The yellow stars you'll see there are areas where we want to place a particular focus. So one of the things that they do is they ask, how well are you doing in these areas? And then they say, in the next 2 years, which areas are the most important to invest in or to place a focus on? The yellow are areas where we didn't perform quite as well and there was a high interest in investment over the next 2 years. The green ones there are areas where we were performing well relative to all of our benchmarks. This is another way to represent that. This is your importance performance matrix. The areas that are high importance, which is that x-axis, but not where we want in terms of quality, which is the y-axis, will be in that bottom right quadrant. And that's where you see the areas of focus come up that we're talking about. So the first key finding that they shared with us is that our residents continue to enjoy a positive quality of life. You have nearly 6 in 10, and I want to preface this by saying that nearly 6 in 10 did feel that COVID-19 had a major or moderate impact on their quality of life. So given that folks felt it had a major impact, that they still felt as strongly as they did about the quality of life in Grand Rapids, I think is notable. You'll see nearly 8 in 10 gave excellent or good ratings to the quality of life in Grand Rapids, and just over 8 in 10 gave excellent or good ratings to Grand Rapids as a place to live. So this is one of the opportunities that we have doing this survey periodically, as we get to see how we're performing in the previous iteration relative to this iteration. The other thing that we did here that's different from the last time that you saw the survey is we've put our disaggregation of race and ethnicity next to our disaggregation on geography. And we did that because quite often we have a tendency to use one as a proxy for the other. And you'll see some areas where that might track, but you're also going to see some areas where it doesn't seem to track. So overall quality of life, the yellow circles here are areas where there's a statistically significant drop, which is considered 6% in the survey. The green areas are areas where you see a statistically significant increase. So you see statistically significant drops in both the Black and African American community as well as the other. One note that I want to make in the other is the way that the survey is administered, Hispanic and Latinx gets rolled into the other when they do their race calculations. Understanding that Hispanic and Latinx is not a race, we ask them to provide us that data separately as an ethnicity. So you'll see there's another line there for Hispanic Latinx that we don't have a comparable for in 2019. When you ask about Grand Rapids as a place to live, you'll see that statistical drop in the other category as well as in the third ward, but the numbers overall stayed pretty strong. The second finding is around safety, and this was an area of focus the first time that we did the survey, and as we know, it remains a focus for us, and still some opportunities for improvement. One of the other questions that we ask is how folks prioritize our strategic planning areas. So the brown and the blue is very important or essential. You'll see that safe community by far is the one that folks felt most strongly about in terms of our strategic plan. And that's followed by economic prosperity and governmental excellence. So with that context, if we look at the overall feeling of safety, we were lower than the national benchmark. We were fairly consistent with the population benchmark in that respect. All of these others, if you don't see a diamond next to it, that means that we were comparable on both levels. The star that you see next to neighborhood at night and downtown at night is they made a change to the survey design between the last time that we did it and this time. They dropped those night metrics, and we asked them to put them back in for us because we feel that that's an important aspect, and it's something that we want to make sure that we continue to measure. So when we look at overall feeling of safety, generally the numbers stayed the same, but you've got a significant drop in the third ward. And this is one of those areas when we talk about geography as a proxy for race and ethnicity, where the race and ethnicity numbers don't match the geographic assumptions that we might make. But clearly in the third ward, we've had a pretty significant drop. When we ask about safety during the day, you see a significant increase in the other category, but other than that, things stayed pretty much the same. That's same with how folks feel about their neighborhoods at night in terms of safety. We ask about downtown during the day. Again, you don't see any significant differences between the last time we did the survey and this time. You will see those numbers go down fairly significantly for downtown at night. Those numbers generally aren't a whole lot different than they were the first time, but they're still notably lower at night than they are during the day. So when we look at the aspects of safety services, this is where we move from perception to actual services that the city provides. You'll note here that police services was lower than national and population benchmark, as well as crime prevention. The other aspects that we've got here were comparable to both the national and population benchmarks. The notable drop that we saw, though, in fire services was amongst the Black and African American community, which, unfortunately, we don't get to interview all of these folks when we respond, but that's one of the things that we want to make a note of and dig into a little bit more, and that's what we want to do with a lot of these results. When we ask about police services, there weren't significant shifts from a race and ethnicity standpoint, but similar to the overall safety measure that we looked at before, there's a significant drop in ratings of police services in the third ward. We ask about crime prevention. You see similarly, not as big of a drop, but a statistically significant drop there in the third ward. The next finding is around economy, and it's an area that remains a strength. Again, that's notable given everything that we've been through and given what folks have personally experienced during this time. We did reach out and ask NRC some questions about the results and what they're seeing from other communities. They did note that communities that have done their surveys since the pandemic began generally saw a downward trend in these numbers. Where Grand Rapids has stayed pretty consistent or has actually improved. If you look at these, you'll see the two areas where we're higher than both the national and the population benchmarks are the vibrancy of downtown and the employment opportunities here in Grand Rapids. So when we ask about overall economic health, you'll see a significant increase in Ward 1, you'll see a significant decrease in Ward 2. Other than that, the numbers stayed fairly comparable to the last time that we did this. When we look at Grand Rapids as a place to work, a significant increase in that other category when we talk about race and ethnicity. Other than that, stayed pretty consistent. We ask about downtown, increases in both the Black and African American as well as the other categories when we talk about race. But a notable difference in third ward in their opinion of downtown. The next finding has to do with inclusivity, and this is a new area that the NRC has put into the survey since the last time that we did it. They had a couple of questions that referred to inclusivity, but they've now gathered all that up into a specific set of questions. And we've got some mixed results in that respect. You'll see here the gray diamonds are areas where we were lower than the population benchmark. The blue diamonds are areas where we're lower than the national benchmark. One of the notes that I didn't make at the beginning that I do want to make now is that a lot of these benchmarks, their average results over a period of time. which means a lot of the benchmarks that we're measuring against are pre-pandemic benchmarks. So that's something else to keep in mind. But lower than the population benchmark on caring for vulnerable residents, valuing and respecting diversity as well as attracting diversity, and then lower than the national benchmarks on valuing and respecting diversity as well as caring for vulnerable residents. This graph is going to look a little bit different because we don't have the 2019 to 22 comparables here. So what you see here is community inclusivity by race and ethnicity. And then you'll see the same thing relative to each ward, with the numbers being fairly notably higher in the first ward than the second and the third. The last one, and this is a new one from the last survey that we did, is the prioritization, the rank prioritization that people placed on infrastructure as a priority in the next 2 years. That doesn't mean that we're generally not performing well in those areas. It just means it's an area that we were at benchmark, but way to the right on the priority level. So refuse collection, drinking water, snow removal, all of those areas were within the benchmarks. The two areas that we were not is street repair, as well as the national benchmarks on public parking. So when we asked about the importance to focus on in the next 2 years, as I mentioned, it's fairly consistent across race and ethnicity as well as across geography, with higher rank priority in the Black and African American community as well as the Hispanic and Latinx community. Street repair, you'll see notable drops. Really, I would say across the board, but we're still looking at that 6% as the statistically significant drop. So when you look at it from that 6% perspective, it's really amongst the Black and African American community as well as within Ward 2. Now, talking to staff, we have, at the same time that we were doing this survey, we were coming out of a fairly, I don't want to say an unusual, but a winter that saw a lot of freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws. And as I've learned, being new to Michigan, that is the recipe for potholes. And that's borne out in the complaints that we had over the same time that we were doing the survey. Nearly twice as many calls for patching potholes in March and April as we had had the preceding year. So that may have factored into this as well. Snow removal services, you'll see, if anything, the opinions improved in that respect. Ease of public parking, you'll see the same. Now, still below the national benchmark, but notable improvements. Now we talk about customer service. How did people feel about their interaction with the city and with the city's employees? 43% had indicated that they had reached out to the city with an inquiry or a request. Of those, you'll see that 83% were either somewhat or very satisfied with that interaction. And then when we ask about overall customer service, it's about 70% responded excellent or good when we asked about that overall customer service from the city employees. This is another custom question that we put into the survey in 2019, and we wanted to carry this forward. And that's residents' interaction with the justice system. It's not specific to police, but it encompasses police and the judicial system. You'll see that 22% had responded that they had some contact with the judicial system. When we ask if they were treated with fairness and respect, you'll see about, 77% responded that they were. We did break this out by race, ethnicity, as well as by geography. This is contact with the justice system, and you'll see that we had drops across the board, which may be a reflection of police interaction, but is probably influenced by the issues that the courts had as well. We all know that they're pretty well backed up because of COVID on moving cases through that system. When we asked if folks were treated with fairness and respect, you'll see the notable drops are really in the Black and African American community as well as the other category. And then you see it in Ward 1 and maybe to a higher degree in Ward 2, where we saw drops. So this wasn't a specific finding, but I thought it was something to address. There was a notable drop in terms of public participation. And you could probably point to that as a residual effect of a lot of the things that we've seen over the last couple of years, not just COVID, but the nature of what we've seen happen here in commission chambers. There's some folks who aren't as motivated to come out. But you'll see drops in every one of those metrics in terms of contacting officials, attending a meeting, as well as volunteering or campaigning for a candidate or for an issue. So what are we going to do next? Internally, we've already shared this out with our executives and our departmental leadership. That gives them the opportunity to crosswalk that data with the updates that we intend to bring forward on the strategic plan, as well as gives them the opportunity to take a look at how that affects their key performance indicators, performance reporting, and then anything that they want to incorporate into their own business planning. Of course, we'll take a look at this and have further conversations as we move into the budget if there's areas where we feel like there needs to be some shift in investment. Externally, this is kind of the first step in that external share out. Release will go out with all that information later today. And one of the conversations that we've had, though, is, when we did this in 2019, we talked about taking those results out into the wards to get more information, to get a better understanding of what these numbers meant. And then COVID told us that we were going to focus on some other things for a little while. So as the end of 19 and by March of 2020, we were in emergency management mode. And we didn't get the opportunity to really do that in an intentional way. So we've talked about taking those commission night out meetings, because they're going to be in each one of the wards, conducting commission business, and then giving you all the opportunity to step down off the dais. And effectively do some table talks around those community livability characteristics and get some additional information from the community about what that means for them in their respective wards, to really try to be intentional about gathering that additional information. So with that, I'll kick it back to you for any questions.
All right, thank you for that. And I have a couple questions, but first I want to apologize for the delay. We were invited to join the governor to celebrate some of the historic investments that will be made here in our city with this recent budget that was passed, and it went a little longer than we expected. So I'm sorry for holding up all of you and staff. Commissioner Jones, thanks for getting us started at COW this morning. But one announcement made this morning that I know is really near to all of our hearts is a $10 million investment into a partnership between Helen DeVos Children's Hospital and Mary Free Bed, which will result in the building of a children's rehab center, which will be only one of 9 in the entire country. And that was a $10 million allocation from the state. It's a $60 million project, and they're hoping to break ground next year. So it's a huge win for our community and for children across our community. So anyway, it was exciting, and we're glad to be a part of that, but also to be able to personally thank the governor and our legislators. So my apologies again for the delay this morning. So I'll start with one question. Doug, I really appreciate this. I know many of us had an opportunity to read the full report over the past week. I personally was pleased to see some of the feedback, particularly in light of the fact that we've all lived through COVID over the last couple of years. And I was glad, especially some of the feedback around economic development and actually some of the feedback on city services and safety, public safety. My question is, It's interesting to me to look at the breakdown with the wards and the demographic breakdown and some of the more granular feedback. And I'm curious, outside of having conversations around table talks, which I think is a good idea, is there a way for us to do a more directed survey that is also reliable and valid to try to take a deeper dive in a few of those areas? I mean, what I appreciate about this survey is that there's national benchmarks, it's reliable, valid, not anecdotal. And I'm wondering if there is a way, I know we do other surveys here at the city, and I'm just wondering if we can maybe take 2 or 3 of those areas, specifically where you saw the dramatic decrease in some of the wards, and just do a deeper dive through a survey process?
I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, we can break out that geography and either do that over the phone or do that in a similar fashion. Probably easier by geography than by race and ethnicity. But I mean, it's certainly a possibility. My recommendation would be perhaps to work our way through the commission night outs, because that may actually give us some additional guidance on, okay, well, what are the focus areas that we might want to incorporate, and then what's the best methodology to get that information.
Okay, yeah, good idea. Thanks. Commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner?
Great job, Doug, on the presentation. Really good, helpful information. I just have a couple questions, and I'm getting to the slides. So I didn't quite hear, slide 18, it's the strategic planning areas slide. I didn't hear the details of that. I think it moved too quickly for me, so I didn't get a chance to fully understand what this slide is conveying. It has the not important to essential. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we wanted to do, and that question was in the 2019 survey as well. What we didn't do was provide comps, because really this is a forward-looking question. When we implemented the strategic plan, the data that we didn't have was, we understand that all of these areas are important. Which ones are most important to the community?
I see.
So these reflect our strategic planning areas as a means of kind of giving us a sense of, okay, well, where does that priority need to lie as we talk about operations, as we talk about budgeting, things like that.
I see. Yeah, and I think it also demonstrates that because we have so many very important and essential, that the categories that we have in our strategic plan are the categories we should have in our strategic plan. So that's good. Thank you for explaining that. Then the next question is on slide 24. And I'm just curious to know how, I think you touched on this a little bit at the end, that you'll share the results with the departments. And I'm just curious to know, with the feelings of safety and all of the questions that were tied to that, if we have any kind of low-hanging fruit items that our public safety departments could immediately implement in light of the results of this. And then I think with staffing and deployment, like, are there any easy shifts that could be made to try and address these very public safety questions? And I think my other couple questions may tie in with that, so I'll ask those too. Wait, now I gotta find it, sorry. A lot of slides. Yeah, I think the other questions too, it's like tied to the communications plan. You know, we were just briefly talking about this with Kate, casually about, communications has been an area, I know since I've been on this commission, since the mayor was a commissioner, that we've been talking about for a number of years. And I think we've made great strides with our communications area and department. But somehow I don't believe that we have reached the level of communications that allow what we're doing here to get in front of the public. Though we have millions of viewers during these meetings, somehow,
Dozens at least, Commissioner.
right, somehow, the message isn't getting out. I even think about the streets, and, when I think about when I was looking at the results of that, I'm thinking, with all the construction, with all the money that we're spending on street repair and all this great work that's happening, if a pothole is causing you to say that's bad, something is wrong with how we're communicating and conveying some messages. So I'm just curious to know, how do we make our work more digestible for the public and regularly, so that then this can be equated to the questions that are coming in the survey, so that when it's time to take the next survey, people will know kind of what we're looking for. Right. And how to respond to those things. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Third Ward Equity Fund. And I'm sure most of you knew I was going to mention it. You must have, Commissioner. You're laughing really hard. But, I just think that again, this speaks to why that fund is necessary. It speaks to why it's important for us to try and right the wrongs of disinvestment in the Third Ward, because the people in the Third Ward are not having the same experience in this city as the First and Second Wards. And I think there were a couple times when everybody wasn't happy, but consistently the Third Ward is sharing with this body, this institution, that we aren't getting it right there. And I think I, as appreciative as I am of the existence of the Third Ward Equity Fund and the funding that has been allocated for the Third Ward Equity Fund over the last few years, I would like to continue to beat the drum that we need to finance it at the same levels of the disinvestment, so we can try and turn things around in the Third Ward, because we still haven't gotten it right.
I'm gonna address your questions from the last one to the first one. We did have a conversation about the street repair item specifically, knowing the significant amount of investment that we've made in that area, and recognize that, for the purposes of the survey, all it asks is street repair services. And it leaves the interpretation up to the person that's answering the question, and that might be a local street, it might be the interstate, it might be the fact that there's construction happening that's related to utilities and has nothing to do with streets. So, kind of to the mayor's comment, there are some areas where we may want to dig in a little bit more and understand exactly what that means. That is one of the challenges when you're doing a national survey that is standardized across multiple communities, that it starts to get diluted a little bit when you ask about these services. But what it does is it raises a flag where there's areas where we might want to do that kind of follow-up, which relates to your second question around communications. I will say that when we talk about communications, I don't want to bifurcate communications from engagement. In my experience, communications is a component of engagement, not the other way around. And we have made some investments and actually have some positions posted right now that we haven't had before to focus specifically on engagement. We've made some fairly significant improvements in communications with the communications department and starting to move those things forward. But the challenge with just doing it that way is someone has to be there to receive it in order for that to work. Where the engagement piece is more of a two-way conversation, and that's something that we haven't had as much strength as we'd like to. So I think we'll continue to see that improve over time, but it's got to be dialogue and it's got to be outreach at the same time. Now on safety, I am going to tactically punt because I do know that the chief is going to be addressing that at the next commission meeting in terms of his evaluation of the department and the adjustments that he wants to make to the PD's strategic plan. In my conversations, I do know that there are some things that they've already done to make those shifts, but I don't want to jump ahead of his opportunity to present and have that conversation.
If I can just piggyback quickly, City Manager, I think one time we had, Mayor, didn't we have like a campaign around potholes that encouraged people to call 311, talked about that really publicly, because when the calls come, the earlier the calls come in, the fewer people who will experience the potholes. And I was one of those people filling potholes one year, actually in front of Commissioner Lumpkins's home. But, if we fill them sooner than later, then fewer people will experience that. And so something as simple as pushing it out, saying if you have potholes, telling the neighborhood groups, call 311. Everybody can do this part by just calling 311 whenever you see one, and then we can address them sooner. So that's an idea that we could recycle probably.
Mayor, if I could, I too share Commissioner O'Neill's concern when we were looking at the satisfactions of our road conditions, because that's an area where we have made significant investment and progress. And I think the comment earlier, instead of doing another survey, it would be better to talk to neighborhoods and more focus groups at the community night out, but also visiting with our neighborhood associations and getting more qualitative feedback. This is not the point of information, it's one of many points, and that's how I view this survey. And relative to the last question, I think Mr. Matthews answered it correctly, but the fire chief also, and here's another disconnect. There was a question about how we're doing with the emergency management or emergency response, and that's something we have been doing for 3 years, almost day in, day out, and we've had an emergency management officer, and I think our services and attention in Minnetonka County would say we have one of the best emergency management services in the county. And but the survey results don't indicate that, despite all the effort and the communication and engagement that has been done. So there's somehow a disconnect, and it may not necessarily be a communication specifically on the city's part. It's just maybe how people interpreted the national survey.
Yeah. Yeah, good points. I'll follow up on just a couple things that Commissioner Lanier said. When I read the results, I did find it interesting, and I actually think it is indicative of the really good work happening in the Third Ward around economic development, because the overall economic health feedback from Third Ward was relatively the same, even though in the Second Ward it was dramatically less. But then you look at the police services and crime prevention is significant. There was a significant drop, which is extremely concerning. So it's interesting the feedback from the wards, and I think for the ward commissioners, you'll want to take a deeper dive into each of those areas. And then thinking about communication and engagement, the feedback and the drop in engagement over time, across all 4 areas is really interesting to me. And I'm sure there's a whole host of reasons for that, whether it's our current political environment that I think over the last 4 years has become much more divisive, or COVID, where people reprioritized, or they have more on their plates and they have a lot more stress. They don't feel safe engaging the way that they have in the past. It'd be interesting to take a look at that and then try to figure out how, kind of with this new landscape of engagement and some of the feedback we're getting from folks, how do we be more creative with how we engage and communicate on a regular basis. So overall, very interesting. I'm sure there's more to process and digest for all of us, but I think it's good feedback for all of us based on our priorities and where we're investing in city services. The other thought I had is going to your pothole question. In the past, we used to get, at a minimum, annual updates from 311. I know Becky Jo Glover used to provide that for the full commission, where a breakdown of calls would come in, which also gave us a sense of what people are concerned about, or their concerns or complaints, and then how quickly we were responding to them and our turnaround time. And we haven't had that in a while, and I wonder if that would be informative as well.
I've wondered that myself, and that speaks to something that's not in the survey, which is our ability to attract the personnel that we needed to do certain work. That was something that was carried out by somebody on Becky Jo's team that has left. And we've had a real challenge getting data-focused people on board. And I know Molly can testify to that because she's been posting and reposting for a while now. But I asked that same question, and the challenge right now is getting data out of the system and into the data portal, because right now it hasn't been updated, I think, since September of, I want to say September of 2019.
Ouch.
Or 2020. Simply because we don't have anybody presently on staff that can do that. But it's something that I've asked about, and it's something that we're working on.
Okay, thanks. All right, any final questions before we go into executive session? Commissioner Jones?
Just real quick, thanks so much, Doug, for this. And I always find it very fascinating to review this survey, because it does speak volumes, but it also, I think, like most of us have said, it creates more questions. And so I do agree that there's an opportunity for us to go and hear voices and in the community. I think what's interesting is historically we've, I think, been accused of gathering information from the community, and yet I think that we still have opportunities out there to hear from perhaps voices that we haven't heard from historically. So, when I look at this, I automatically go to, obviously there's three wards, but, was there a certain neighborhood in each ward that responded favorably, or they responded compared to other neighborhoods within that ward? I, automatically think about the response from the neighborhoods of focus. So that's both the first and third ward, to hear from residents in that space. Because again, it's one thing to hear from residents throughout the city. It's another thing to be able to drill down and get specifically to neighborhoods and to communities that perhaps historically have not shared their sentiments, or maybe they feel as if this is not a good opportunity to do that. And so it's, I think we have a responsibility to go to and to sit and listen and really hear from as many folks as we possibly can. But I've always found this to be not just fascinating, but very, very helpful in general. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner.
And I just want to reinforce one of the things that the city manager said, and it's something that we shared with staff, is this is a data point. This is not the data point. All of it combines the data that we collect from the calls of service, the data that we collect from our actual service out in the streets, the data that we collect from the community, both formally and informally. All of that gives us the complete picture. But this is certainly helpful in giving us some guideposts.
Yeah, thanks so much. And clearly important as we look at improving services. So thank you. All right, Commissioners, with that, we'll go down to the law library and get an update on a couple legal issues.